We would be honored if you would join us.
All right, everyone, welcome to an exciting episode of Dungeon Crawlers, where we are going to review probably one of, well, I'm just going to put it out there, one of the most spectacular series that we have seen so far this year. There's my clause, because there may be more coming soon.
Oh, heck yes.
But we will be venturing to a galaxy far, far away to talk about Book of Boba. And with that said, Alton unfortunately is not with us this evening. And we have Matthew returning once again. For those of you that have listened to the amazing Wheel of Time episodes, Matthew is here giving us his expertise in the land of Robert Jordan's creation.
Hello, everybody.
So,
Hello. And just for the record, really quick, we were super duper close to having Alton return to the show.
Yes.
We were going to record an episode last night. We got together, found that there were some administrative things we had to handle first, and we ended up talking and planning and coming up with some really exciting ideas for this year. Unfortunately, that meant that we didn't record an episode, and we were supposed to get back together tonight, and then unfortunately he wasn't able to join us. So that's okay. But we want you to know Alton is coming back. Alton is returning to the show. He's taken a short leave of absence, and that's okay.
I believe he's prepping for the gladiatorial trials. He and I are supposed to meet to combat to the death to determine who gets to continue on at Dungeon Crawlers.
We have discussed the idea that we should hold a rad dome between you and Alton to see who becomes the third host.
And just remember, the D is for danger.
The D is always for danger.
I like those Rad Dome episodes. They're really cool. And man, you guys pull up some deep cuts.
Yeah, we talked about having some more. So, we're also going to change up our format a little bit. We've talked about, we won't do it in this episode. But be aware that the next episode or the one following, we'll probably have the new format where the main topic we're going to keep to around 40 minutes, and then we're going to throw in some geek news and other things in there,
because there is so much newsworthy stuff in the land of geeks that is so we don't ever take time to talk about it, and it's such good stuff.
So be aware that stuff will be coming at you weekly besides our main topic. So the main topic at hand this evening is the Book of Boba. The series is over. There are a lot of people that are very divided on this series. If you go out to the internet, it just seems like nothing anymore is safe.
Right?
If you do a search, you're going to get people that hate something. You're going to get people that love it. You're going to get the people in the middle that is like, whatever. It just doesn't seem like society as a whole on internet or on social media are all behind everything. And I get it. People like some things, people don't like other things, and that's okay. We kind of hinted with Wheel of Time where Matthew kind of liked, the last three movies. They were pretty decent, and as movies, they are entertaining. But
are you talking about Wheel of Time or Star Wars?
Star Wars.
Star Wars. Okay,
sorry. Yeah. 7, 8,
I'm a little
9.
confused there.
No, I got a little confused.
Yeah.
Keep going.
No problem. Thanks for asking the question. But as movies, they are entertaining. But as a continuation of the Skywalker saga, I felt like they were missing some beats. So moving towards, we've seen The Mandalorian, both seasons. Now we have Book of Boba. And to be fair, I feel like, taking on this series was a really large task by Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau and the directors. Mm-hmm. And that's because Boba Fett is one of those characters that George Lucas wanted dead, and the fans brought him back, just like Darth Maul. However, I feel like we got a really awesome Darth Maul storyline. With Boba Fett, they've kind of taken a little bit of a different turn. We're not, and I think this is where the fan division's coming out, because, all the old EU stuff, Boba Fett's is still a pretty badass bounty hunter that doesn't take anyone's crap and stuff like that. and he starts he kind of brings the Mandalorians together, bands them together. If I remember right, I could be wrong here, but I believe in one of the books he takes on the title of Mandalore, which, that's the overall ruler of Mandalorians, of Mandalore, the society.
Yeah.
However, we're not seeing that in this Book of Boba. We're seeing something vastly different, and there are some conflicts within the show. So let's start off there with the question of, did you like the series or didn't you, and why?
Awesome. Look, I know I'm kind of an easy to please guy. I also know that I'm a Star Wars fan. I also know that I used to be a film student and I'm an amateur filmmaker, yada, yada, yada. I know all those things. All of that.
And now we do too.
And now you guys do too. I know that I just barely humble flexed, but also, the truth is I loved this show. Now, I think we should maybe talk about, episodically our impression and our experience, but as an overall result, I thought that this series was pretty excellent. Was it as great as Mandalorian season 2? No, I don't think it was as great, but was it great? Yes. And I don't think just because it's not the same as Mandalorian means automatically that it gets panned. And I'm really curious what people online think about it, why they think so negatively about it. And there were certain things in certain episodes where I was like, okay, this shows a lack of budget or a lack of commitment, or they obviously had to cut some corners here, et cetera, et cetera. All of that said, I thought it was an exceptional show that breathed new life into an originally dead, then resurrected, then elderly character, right? Like I think they breathed new relevance into this character.
Yeah, I did like this. I like this series. There was a lot of information in there that was new to me. I haven't read a lot of the expanded universe. In fact, the extent of my Boba Fett knowledge from the EU was that he escaped the Sarlacc pit and he's out there someplace. And so that was one thing I really did like seeing in the series, is that, okay, it's kind of staying true to that narrative. It makes the most sense. It was what the fans wanted, and it does show how awesome Boba Fett is and why Mandalorian armor is so important. And the story that they went through this season, they paid homage to the Mandalorian. They acknowledge this is a spin-off of that series, so they had him in there. It kind of continues a little bit of that story arc, touches on some characters that we'd only, some minor characters that we've seen before, and a lot of the alien races we'd seen on Tatooine and in Jabba's palace and that kind of stuff. It really fit the setting, and I could see this really kind of, the way they did this, creating their own space within the existing mythology, unlike other series where we talked about that they, offend the original intent, they defy the mythos. I don't think they did that here, and that was one thing I really respected about this.
I mean, I really like the fact that they didn't, use Mos Eisley. They used another one of the larger towns on Tatooine so that we could get, so it wouldn't conflict with those things. We're still on Tatooine. We're still creating a new storyline. Yes, there are some few minor things that I don't know if all of us could agree upon. But at the same time, they're building something. They're building something a little bit different than we've seen in the comics and in the extended universe novels. Does it conflict? I don't think so. I don't think it conflicts. I think it just gives us a different story than what we've heard before. I mean, there's especially one scene where we still see that Boba Fett is still that ruthless person. I mean, we'll get to that scene a little bit later in our discussion, but you do see that ruthlessness in him. And at the same time, in those extended universe books, he starts building, this kind of like group of individuals that work with him because he's getting older. He realizes that. And I kind of think that they're doing that same thing, but going about it in just a little bit different way.
And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because
no, it's not.
When you look at the story that they told, I realized that, you know, a lot. Wait. Before we go any further, we should have mentioned this episode will contain spoilers for the series Boba Fett.
Spoiler.
Spoilers. I mean, what ended 2 weeks ago? They should have already seen it by now.
Yeah. If you're continue to listen to this episode, I ain't got tears for you. Okay.
Yes.
So go see the show, then come back and let us talk your ear off. But all that said, there were some people who were being critical of the show that called it Boba Fett in Dances with Tuscans, you know, and we can't help but sort of pick up on the parallels between the Tusken Raiders and you know, this country's own Native American history, things of that nature. But what I like about that is that you take a fictional world, a fictional people, a fictional universe, and you create emotional parallels that allow us to connect with those fictional people in those fictional places, right? In these fictional situations, we have very non-fictional reactions. We have very real responses emotionally to those characters. We bond to them and we care about them. So I'm not mad that they went that route. I often wonder if the people who are making these Dances with Tuscans jokes, I wonder if these are the same people who still love James Cameron's Avatar, which is just, you know, Smurfs and Pocahontas. But I'm on the opposite side of that spectrum, where it's like I really don't like the Avatar movie storyline, because I feel like it's hyper stolen. It's hyper plagiarized and contrived.
It's derivative.
It is derivative. I mean, the MacGuffin is called unobtainium. Way to go, writers. But yeah, I actually really appreciated how it breathed life into the Tusken Raiders, made them more than just quote unquote dirty sand people, right? Yeah. It made them a real people, a real culture, and I loved that. And it also breathed new dimension into Boba Fett.
Well, I mean, and just Avatar, and then we'll jump over to Matthew so he can say his thing, and then I'll jump in. But the funny thing about Avatar is it seemed like in the last 15 minutes, James Cameron finally realized, wait a minute, this was a war movie. I think I need to do something here. Because it just suddenly goes, yeah, the pacing is bad. Unobtainium was a horrible name. Oh, come on. You can come up with something better than that.
But it's given us jokes for like 20 years now.
I know, so but great. Apparently they're obtaining it. So it's
right. Somewhat obtainium.
Yeah, I mean, call it CRX 4.9
PHX 1138.
Yeah, something like that.
You know, one of the things that I like this, you mentioned the story in the Tuscans, and I don't want to offend the EU people. And as I said, I'm not an expert on that at all. But from what I gather, the Boba Fett of the EU did some cool things, but was pretty much the same character.
Yeah.
It was they liked his bounty hunter persona, and they dialed it up to 11. Now, what we saw in the Boba Fett series was what happens to a real person who has multiple facets to their personality, who's just been through a literal death-defying experience, and he wakes up having lost an item that is critical or strongly tied to his identity. He no longer has his armor. Who is he without his armor? And now he's captured, he's made a prisoner. The tables have turned. The bounty hunter who takes prisoners is now the prisoner. And he has to kind of learn, and he doesn't win every battle anymore. So it really takes this person who, and you did mention he is an older man now. And age tends to temper a lot of passions. And so what I saw in this story was, to me, easier for me to accept, because he changed, because he reacted in a way that made sense in his scenario. And I was anxious for him to get his armor back, because he really wasn't to me, he wasn't a complete person. That was somebody who he had become. following in the footsteps of his father. This was important to him. And so becoming a Tusken warrior, if you will, and earning their respect kind of was him rebuilding himself back up after hitting rock bottom after the Sarlacc. So that whole story arc is what I found compelling about the series.
I agree. I like the story arc because, he was one of the greatest bounty hunters of the galaxy, and he got beat by a blind guy. I mean, let's face it, that's what happened.
Coincidentally.
Coincidentally, and then it ended up in the Sarlacc. And, the toxins the Sarlacc pumps into his body, who knows what horrors and torture he went through mentally, so when he finally does escape, we see that he's scarred and burned from the stomach acid and stuff like that. And the Tuskens take him in. He saves, the youngling, and they accept him and start, helping him, and it's no different than kind of what, Dances with Wolves, Dances with Tusken is actually honestly a really good comparison. It's very similar. But what I like is he failed. He tried to build them up, and the Pikes destroyed him, destroyed the Tuskens. And he took that, that meant something to him. He felt something. And then he went and then took over Jabba's palace and started building an empire. And it was different. It wasn't an empire of, I'm the crime lord, I'm going to beat you down. It was exactly what the Tuskens had built, taught him. So I did like that comparison.
And, a lot of people, when Boba Fett appeared in Mandalorian, there were some people who were critical of the fact that he had a gaffy stick that was also Maori in design. And he was using this physical melee weapon to crack plastoid armor and to take down stormtroopers and such. And what always tickles me is when internet pundits get in there and they're like, oh, there's a plot hole now. There's a plot hole. You can't have this. La, 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 la. And then I'm like, it's not a plot hole. You just have to wait long enough for the story to be told. You just have to wait. Give it time for the story to actually happen. And then you'll see it's not a plot hole. And it's not a plot hole. You're a plot hole. No, anyway, so
shut your plot hole.
Shut your plot hole. And what happens when they show like the forging of his gaffy stick, how it's made from like this iron root wood stuff. And I thought it was brilliant. It all came together. It was his style. It was his infusion, his take on a gaffy stick. And he learned to master that martial art from the weapon master of the tribe. And like it all came together. There weren't any loose ends. There weren't any plot holes. People just had to wait. And people are bad at waiting. But man, Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni and the entire crew behind the Star Wars series, plural, on Disney Plus have shown us that they know how to do this justice. They know how to tell the story. We just need to trust them and give them time.
You're right. You're absolutely right. And after all the things that Jon Favreau has done from, the MCU as well as in the Star Wars universe, I think he's earned some trust. And your point is well taken. If something doesn't make sense to you, especially if there's been a suitable time gap, realize there's a story you haven't heard yet. And it's time to not get critical, but to get excited of, oh, I can't wait to hear how he got that stick, Because if Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni are involved in this, it's going to be a good story.
Absolutely.
Well,
Absolutely.
and as a writer myself, sometimes you don't realize, you write something, you put it out there, and your subconscious knows it, but you don't know it yet. Example, when I wrote my first book, I had this scene, and I talked about how a dragon had attacked New York, and that was kind of it. That was in the beginning, and didn't deal with any of it. And I know there's one review like, yeah, there's this giant plot hole. The dragon attacked New York and doesn't really talk about it. Well, because after the book was already out and I was driving to Comic-Con, it hit me. That's why I didn't say anything about it because there's a second dragon, they
Spoilers.
disguised it. So sometimes you don't realize it in the moment when you're writing out these stories, but your brain does, or the storyteller in you does. And then it's like, okay, now it's time, and that's what it was. It wasn't time to tell that story in The Mandalorian when he showed up, but it became time, during this, and both of them are side by side. We saw they're creating a universe. They really are. It's not just the Boba Fett show. It's not just Mandalorian. We're getting an Ahsoka series here shortly, and we saw Ahsoka show up. We also saw Luke Skywalker showing up with Grogu. And how cool was that? I mean, come on. We have R2 talking to all these droids that are building a temple, and you have Ahsoka there, and and then you see a scene with her and Luke, which we've never seen before. And she's like, "You remind me of your father." Oh my gosh, that was so amazing, that moment. Because here is someone that has been with Anakin and with Luke. So that was really cool. And I like how they're building things together. And this is how Star Wars has always been. It interweaves with all these characters, and they're doing a fantastic job with it.
So you touched on something that I really wanted to go into on this one. One of my favorite things about this series, about Boba Fett, is the characters introduced and intertwined, right? First episode, they introduced a menagerie of characters.
Oh yeah.
And I can think of at least 4, make it 5, make it 6, 7 that I thought were really memorable. Even if I don't know their names, I remember the character, right?
Oh my gosh, the mayor. I mean, come on. How can you
not? Mokshai's, yeah.
Hey, what was the name of his protocol droid?
I have to look it up, but I know who played him.
Yes, that's what I was going to say.
From the IT crowd.
Yes, it's Matt Berry.
Yeah,
I heard that voice, and I'm like, what's Renham doing here?
Yeah, the biggest chauvinistic pig in the universe. Yeah. Well, and the funny thing is that droid is also in Return of the Jedi.
Oh my gosh.
He's the droid that's torturing the Gonk droid.
Yeah. When you have the sniveling, we actually saw Boba Fett destroy in the kitchen the copper-headed droid that was giving the orders, like, "You're a feisty one."
Yeah.
Talking to R2, right? But in the background and his name is 88. In the background is 88, searing the feet of the Gonk droid.
I remembered that.
Yeah.
And so to see him be this protocol droid and stuff, and to hear that voice, I was like, oh, this is so cool. And interesting, another IT crowd tidbit. Richard Ayoade.
Yeah.
Voiced, Yeah. He voiced another droid, I believe.
On Mandalorian, it was the bug-eyed droid, the one that almost killed the child.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I just thought that was. I'm a big fan of the IT crowd, so
it's a great series.
Yeah, I was freaking out about that too.
Well, so the great thing about this, and I have to say, the Tusken Raider. What would we call Blade Master?
Weapon
Master.
Build. Yeah, we call it Weapon Master, but build only as Tusken Warrior.
Yeah, man, that was the coolest thing to see, especially when and for those of you that don't know, the individual underneath all those wrappings was a woman,
Joanna Bennett.
Man, yeah,
and she was phenomenal,
amazing, and without saying a lot, I mean, she conveyed a lot in that scene with the train. I mean,
she did.
She just kind of looked up, looked around, ducked in, and you just see people flying out, and oh my gosh, such a great scene, that train thing. And not only that, that's the first time I've ever seen a droid bail out. I mean,
yes,
most droids just go for it and they don't break protocol, but this droid bailed out of a train that was about to explode, which was amazing.
So I mean, there's so much to work through here in just the first episode.
Yes.
I'll save my favorite for the last, but in just the first episode, we had 88 voiced by Renham from IT Crowd. We had 88, and that was a wonderful throwback. We got to meet not only what was the mayor in the first episode. I know his lackey was in the episode.
No, I think he was in later episodes, but it was still cool to see an Ithorian actually talking.
Yes, through a translator.
Yeah, that was something they couldn't have done that with A New Hope. This is some of the new technology we have now that allows that. And man, doesn't it, pardon the pun, flesh out the alien creatures, give them more?
Yes,
because there's all kinds of creative aliens. When Lucas did this in the 70s, their idea of aliens was very, very basic. He was like, there's got to be a great variety of life in the universe. And so there were all kinds of people in there, and they're going to have different biologies and different ways of communicating and stuff. It was so, yeah, I loved seeing that, adding in a positive way to the existing mythos.
Well, yeah. And I mean, I was among them, and I know several of my friends were, that we all had the Hammerhead figure, and was like, oh, this is so cool. But we never heard it one. It wasn't in. I mean, we actually first saw in the first Clone Wars cartoon that was pushed out on Cartoon Network, and you saw the Jedi one, and and he flexed his voice muscles, and it blew all the droids away, and then, in the actual Clone Wars series, we saw them start to talk. So it's been really cool to see how these aliens have evolved and added to it. And not only that, the different Twi'leks that we've been able to see, that they're not all just slutty dancers in Jabba's palace. Hera Syndulla is an amazing pilot, piloting the Ghost. And so many other things, even the Gamorreans that were in this one weren't like giant bulbous slobs. I mean, these guys look ripped.
That's because they were both played by MMA fighters.
Nice.
Which I didn't know until just now, to be honest with you.
But even then, it shows that not all Gamorreans are heavy set.
That's right.
And
cannon fodder.
Rancor food.
They're not all gluttonous pigs, but dumb tisk.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Yeah, the Gamorreans in Return of the Jedi, they were cannon fodder, and in this one we learned that pigs can fly.
Oh yeah.
Oh dang, girl.
But not very well.
No, not very well. I was gonna throw back to when Josh used to run, when Krebs used to run Star Wars RPG. Mm-hmm. And when we would roll up characters, I never wanted to play the human, and hey, I'm a big fan of humans. My best friends are humans. However, when I'm in this game, I really liked investigating these other alien races, their different capabilities and their different challenges. One character that I played was blind, kind of reminded me of a Myrddraal from Wheel of Time, which is why I wanted to try it out. But he had foresight, and then Josh made me disarm a trap that was color coded. And it was not clear from the description if foresight lets you see colors.
Yes, it does.
So we played this as it was difficult for me to tell the differences between colors. I could tell that there was something on there, but yeah. So I thought that was very tricky of him. Good GM move. But anyway, I love doing the Star Wars game when we were doing that.
Yeah, the characters here, what makes them, like you said earlier, it really fleshed out the aliens. What I love about this show and everything that Favreau and Filoni have done is on Disney Plus anyway, is that they will do everything with practical effects as far as they can go. And then when the practical effects cannot go that far, or it's not as believable, then they augment with CG. They, much like Lucas did in the late 70s when he was making Star Wars, they have found ways to use technology in an innovative manner, where The Mandalorian and Boba Fett are no longer the only shows using full digital cycloramas and Unreal Engine rendering. It's not the only show doing that now. And but they were the first to do it and to do it well. And and they tell such a rich story. Going back to the characters that were introduced that I just loved. Let's first of all, as a child who grew up in the 80s, big top hat tip to our girl Jennifer Beals.
Oh yeah.
I don't know how it's possible. I think she might be Aes Sedai, but she is ageless.
Oh my gosh, she looks just as amazing now as she did then. And seriously, I'm gonna admit it. Since seeing her in there, I had to add Flash Dance back to my my phone in my.
I don't blame you.
Yeah,
I don't blame you. She was stunning, and she was not hyper objectified. She was beautiful.
Oh, no.
She was powerful too, right?
Well, see, that's the thing I really liked is even though she was a Twi'lek, she wasn't dressed like a slutty dancer in Jabba's palace.
No, that was her server.
Yes, she was running a bar that had other
with extra services.
It was a full service institution.
Yeah. Yes, but she was still dressed very classy. And it was done well. And just because I did make an error, Force visions, you can see color, but Force sight, no, you can't. It's translucent, and you can only see organisms. You cannot see non-living things. Even if the organism is dead, you can still see it.
In my game, it was more like Force sonar. But anyway, that's not the point. That's not the point.
But no, I think they did a really good job. They created some characters that had depth to them. I mean, even Jessica. Oh man,
Jennifer Beals.
Not Jessica. Jennifer Beals.
Jessica Biel is a different person. From
I
Jennifer
know.
Beals,
that's why I'm like, wait a minute. That's totally
in the immortal words of Akbar, it's a trap.
Yes. But it was a great character. And we got to see other characters really built. Fennec Shand. Oh my gosh. An amazing character. And when she first showed up in Mandalorian, I'm like, really? I got to see Mulan again. And not only that, or not even Mulan, the Cavalry from Agents of Shield. Because I mean, it's pretty much the same character.
Yeah.
Do you remember? Did you get to see her panel when she came to FanX?
No, I missed it, unfortunately.
She mentioned in there that she had this role on Mandalorian, but she really couldn't say a whole lot about it. But she kept wanting to, and stopping herself partway through. And it was basically, she did say that this was someone that kicks butt, a lot like Agent May. But there were so many more cool things, and there were a lot more places they intended to go with it. And she says, I'm so excited. I can't wait for you guys to see this character.
Yeah.
And she wouldn't even give us the name.
Yeah.
But so I now after seeing this, I could see why she was so excited.
Well, it's probably because she was heavily contracted and embargoed that if she said anything.
Yeah. Well, because Disney holds on to all the money.
To Tatooine and back. Yeah.
So
you break a Disney contract, man, it makes The Godfather look like Romper Room.
Yes, they are the Iron Fist, right? Okay, the Iron Four-Fingered White Puffy Glove. Anyway, so in the interest of time, instead of me like hogging all the character introductions that I loved, let me spread this out just a little bit.
Sure.
Because there is a character that there were a few characters that I just like, oh my gosh, please don't kill this person because I need them back, right? But give me one of your all-time favorite characters introduced this series.
Black Chrysanthemum.
That's it right there.
Yeah.
Black Chrysanthemum.
I would agree.
Oh my gosh, that first reveal. First reveal where he walks out from behind the twins, right? And then he's like towering, he's intimidating and imposing, and he's got like this massive weapon that he never gets to use. He
uses it.
You use it one time
later in the series.
I didn't think he used it in the fight.
No, he's blasting away pikes at the end.
Oh, you're probably right. It may have been that rifle. I thought he had something else, but you're probably right. But he comes out and he's just this enormous, eclipsing creature. And I remember thinking, we're going to have to fight him later. And it's going to be horrible. It's going to be terrible. It's going to be bad. And then I wondered if he would be like the villain, like the secret tough villain of the show. And are they going to kill him and all this stuff? And we did get to see him fight when he ambushed Boba Fett in the Bacta tank, and that fight sequence, that particular one, was just brutal. Oh my gosh, I loved it so much.
For me, I knew he was going to end up with Boba Fett. And the only reason for that, you see him in the comics. They fight side by side. There's a couple of comics where they're together. And so I love the fact they pulled that character out of the MCU. Or not the MCU. Man,
wrong universe.
I know, the extended universe, the EU. Oh my gosh, this is what happens. My brain. Anyways, I love that they did that. And they've been slowly doing that. That's the one thing that Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni have been doing. And not only that, my second on this list would be Cad Bane.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And their rendition of Cad Bane was so
it was the
excellent.
Same voice. It was the same voice.
This was the first time I'd seen, well, I guess it's the first time anybody's seen Cad Bane in live
action.
Live
action, yes.
And I've seen him in some of the cartoons before, the animated series. And he was so cool, right? I mean, in a bad way. And then when I saw him come in and he tilted his head up and you could see the face and it was blue.
I didn't even need that. The second you see the marshal walk out and it looks out into the desert and I saw the flap of the trench coat, I'm like, oh, no way, it's Cad Bane. My kids are like, who? I'm like, Cad Bane.
Now, I have to say, I was ready to be really critical because if they failed on the special effects for that character, I was going to be upset. So I was looking for any flaw because that's not a real creature.
That's right.
And so it was, and I thought they did a great blend of practical and digital effects. I'm assuming some of that was practical and it was augmented. And I thought, oh man, that's the way to go.
Yes. And like there, usually when you have CG augmentation or, you know, anytime you have CG stepping into alter anatomy and things like that, or even when you have practical effects, there's a certain level of uncanny valley that occurs because now that you have prosthetics in the way, your mouth doesn't move quite right. The person speaking, they give off the subtle impression that they're not used to their teeth feeling that way. You know, all of that, right? But whoever was behind the mask on Cad Bane enunciated. And like the best expression I have for it is they puppeted their mouth so perfectly. And I don't know what all the behind the scenes tricks are yet. I wonder if they did get in there with some CG, but there's part of me that thinks they stayed as close to practical as possible because it's so organic and it's so believable, more so than most CG can usually deliver. All right, so that's Cad Bane, and I'm absolutely 1,000,000% with you. I'm kind of sad that they did him in because I would love Cad Bane to be a returning villain.
I was sure that he was going to escape to come back another day because you don't want to waste the character like him.
He was beautiful and brilliant.
So this is what's really cool. I had to look it up, but the same actor that voiced Cad Bane in Clone Wars and in The Bad Batch also played Cad Bane in Book of Boba.
Was in the costume?
Yes.
Oh, that's hot.
Nice. That's more than likely they were probably modeling his mouth and everything when he was actually doing the voice. So that's probably why he was able to pull that off.
That is hot. And that's the right way to do it when you can make that happen.
Yeah, it was Corey Burton. So that is amazing, to be honest.
That is, dude, big high five to Favreau and Filoni for pulling that off because that's just insanely amazing.
Can I throw a shout out to Timothy Oliphant as well?
Yes, you can, because he was coming up.
I'm sorry.
You know, I just like seeing him every now and then. And while his character may not have been my favorite, Cobb Vanth, right?
Cobb Vanth.
Yeah.
He was still a pretty good character. I liked seeing him just because he's got an interesting sense of honor, you know, and the way he came back in and stopped the spice trade from going through his town, I thought that was good. That was respectable. Somebody has to survive to carry the tale back, right? So I thought that was really good. But anyway, because Timothy Oliphant has a Modesto connection.
Yes, he does.
He's a graduate of Bayer High School, which was a rival to the high school that Krebs 2.0 there and I went to.
For those who do not know, the Krebs brothers do come from Modesto, California.
So yeah, that was why I liked seeing him.
You know, where I became a big fan of him is when he played Raylan Gibbons in Justified.
Justified. And is this not just the same character in space? And I'm not even mad about it. Like, I love it.
I think it's a little bit toned down. He's a little bit. This is like,
well, his drawl is turned down, but his character.
It's like Raylan Gibbons is an old man, which I'm actually excited because they are doing another Justified series with him.
They are?
Yes.
Oh, I'm in. I loved Justified.
This is the thing I love, that they're bringing in some solid characters. They're bringing in some solid talent to play these characters. You know, again, we got to see Luke. We got to see some more Grogu. We got to see the Mandalorian, the armor, more explanation on the Darksaber. We got to see Jon Favreau show up again and get his butt kicked.
I missed that. Where did he show up?
It's when it's in that first episode with the Mandalorian where he's
the heavy Mando,
the heavy Mando that fights him for this Darksaber.
Although let me verify this really quick, because I wasn't sure. Because I remember him playing it in the original Mandalorian, but I thought maybe they got a different actor for this rendition. I'm going to verify that, but keep going.
No, that's a bit of trivia I completely missed out on. Oh my gosh!
I liked it. They kind of went into some lore of the Darksaber, so that was cool to see. And you know, yes, I was a little sad that they smelted down the Beskar spear, but then we got a little chainmail shirt for Grogu,
little Frodo shirt.
Yeah, but I mean. All of that pales in comparison to the final episode. I mean, it really did build up to a really amazing ending. And I know a lot of people are going to probably say, what the heck are you talking about? The first couple of episodes were this weird flashback sequence, but we needed that to get up to where we were in those final episodes, where we understand why Boba Fett is fighting so hard to protect the people in this town, and it's his town, and he's the daimyo. Yes.
Daimyo. Yeah. Clarification: Jon Favreau is the voice of Paz Vischla, but Paz Vischla is played by a physical actor.
Okay.
By a different physical actor.
Gotcha. That makes more sense, because I don't think Happy can make those moves.
Not anymore. His fighting days are a tad behind him.
Yeah. But it really kind of solidified a difference in Boba, because he's not really a Mandalorian, and he does say that, you know, he's not a Mandalorian. He lives by a different code because he wasn't born on Mandalore, and he's not a foundling, and so on and so forth. He's forging his own path. So we needed that. We needed that background story, and then we get the mods that show up. I'm not super excited about their little Vespa hovercraft speeder bike things, because I mean, come on, those speeder bikes that
how many rear view mirrors do you need, bro?
Yeah. But again, you know, they're just punks that are cruising around town. They don't need to be able
it was very much in its own right, stylistically, a nod to the 80s cyberpunk movement, right? It reminded me of Rifts. Hey, did you know that I used to play a game called Rifts from Palladium? I think we've talked about it before, but anyway, so
if you haven't, just listen to one of our episodes in 2010 when Krebs shows up for the first time.
Oh, I'm sure that's not even real. Anyway, so yeah, like there was very much like a cyberpunk feel to it. I like that it wasn't just a bunch of sexy technology. It wasn't very Blade Runner. It wasn't, 2049. It wasn't like it was technology that poor kids in the ghetto would get their hands on, right?
Well, yeah,
scraps of droid.
But at the same time, that's in the extended universe. That's part of the Star Wars universe. And, when you have droids running around, it's not real. I mean, we see it with Anakin. I mean, for crying out loud. I mean, he's got a droid arm. Luke has a droid hand. So why not just, hey, we're just going to put on a couple of droid parts, protocol droid arm or whatever.
So let me ask you guys this, because I think some of the controversy came up with, we obviously, all three of us really enjoyed this series. I think that's pretty easy to nail down. But, episodes 5 and 6 very much become about something other than, actually, I think it's episodes 4, 5, and 6, right? Become about things other than Boba Fett and Fennec Shand. We get, the Mandalorian returns. You've got Din Djarin is his name. You've got Grogu. You have a a return to the deep fake Luke. Ahsoka. You have you have like all these
Richard Simmons.
You have she's wonderful and I love her. She's a national treasure.
Richard, when you say that, you mean Richard Simmons or the mechanic?
Oh, dang. Burn. So let me ask you guys this. When the
Jawas are fuzzy.
the series was only 7 episodes long, and 3 of those episodes were taken up primarily by other characters other than Boba. So where do you stand on that? How did you feel about those episodes specifically?
So, I mean, I get where some people are frustrated. You got the one camp that's like, wow, this is a story about Boba. We have 7 episodes, and 3 of them are not really about him. I get that. Then on the other hand, you got the other camp that's like, yeah, the best episodes of the Book of Boba didn't even star Boba. The problem is, and I think this is where people aren't realizing it, is Boba Fett showed up in Mandalorian. This is clearly showing that their fates are aligned. It's no different than some of the other Force stories we've heard with other Jedis and other people in the past. Their fates are intertwined somehow, and that's why we see the Mandalorian show up. We need him in that final episode, and there's no way for him to just show up without knowing this story. And we still need kind of a conclusion with Grogu, because he left, and the Mandalorian still has feelings, and he's got the Darksaber, so we need to understand that and what's going on there, because I'm pretty sure that's those components we saw here are going to continue on in either Book of Boba 2 or the next season of Mandalorian. So, and I'm pretty sure Boba Fett may be involved there. At the same time, we needed seeds planted for more things with Ahsoka. It may be that Luke shows up more in the Ahsoka series than we realize. So again, like I said earlier, they're really building their version of the MCU right now with these TV series. Like we've seen with WandaVision and Winter Soldier and the Falcon and Loki and so forth. I think they're doing that right now. And that's why we're seeing these other characters coming in and out. Do I wish we would have gotten more episodes? If it wasn't for the pandemic, we probably would have. And I think they did rush the Book of Boba a little too fast. I would have liked to see at least 2 or 3 more episodes. But at the same time, due to the pandemic and budget constraints, we probably couldn't have gone that way, because let's face it, that last episode is probably really pricey.
That last episode,
but it was awesome.
They definitely awesome. Were saving up a lot, yes. Not just money, but also like not just budget, but like actual fan service, delivery, everything they were building up to was excellent.
And not only that, one thing before I let it go over to Matt, how cool was it to see Danny Trejo show up in Star Wars?
Oh my gosh.
Machete, the Rancor trainer.
Yes.
It's a good animal. Very sweet once you get to know them. Just like
bond with the first person they see.
I can't wait to like that's like almost the equivalent of Danny Trejo giving you like gardening tips. The strawberries are especially good in March. Just like and he shows up and he's all, here's a giant puppy. It'll eat your neighbors. You should ride this thing.
Yeah.
I love everything about it.
But this is the cool thing, is here's a guy that is always known as like the rough and tough dude that will just rip your arms off and beat you to a bloody pulp, and he showed up in almost everything. Like, if I'm just going to throw this out here now. If J.J. Abrams can somehow, or Paramount can somehow insert him into Star Trek 4, he's like He's been in everything.
He's already half Klingon. That shouldn't be hard.
I know.
I'm going to double check right now. I need to know if Danny Trejo is already in Star Trek because I have a feeling he's made an appearance.
Maybe.
It could be. And it would. Yeah. I mean, come on. They made Christopher Lloyd a Klingon. They could totally make Danny Trejo
Should
a
not
Klingon.
be hard. But to bring it back to Star Wars.
Yes, bring back Star Wars for a second.
It was an interesting story choice doing this other thing there. Luckily the story was good. If it had been a bad story, it probably would have been a mistake. And there were probably multiple options they could have gone with, but they chose this one. It didn't annoy me or anything, but I'll tell you what this has done is it's established a precedent that if you enjoy one of Disney Plus's Star Wars series, you have to now actually watch all of them because some of your favorite characters may progress in their story in some other series you would otherwise have thought of skipping. So I think this has a great deal to do with lessons they learned with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, how you always have these heroes dropping by in other people's stories and the end credit scenes and all that stuff. They're saying, hey, this, I hate to be capitalistic about it, but this is a good money-making model. And so, it's a lesson that they've learned. They're applying it here. This is very, very savvy. And again, if the stories sucked, this would make me mad. But the stories are so good, I'm like, yeah, I'm not even angry, bro.
Well, this is exactly what you saw in the extended universe books. I mean, before it got sold off to Disney, there was the storyline where one of the Solo twins, Jason, became a Sith, and the daughter Jaina was a Jedi as well, but she was being trained by Boba Fett to assassinate her brother. I mean, so throughout those books, you constantly see characters coming in and out. So I think they're just mimicking the model that George Lucas already built in the extended universe stuff.
And I don't know if you guys feel the same way, although I think you probably do, but like the endorphin rush as a fan, when you see a recognizable character, either someone that may not be as famous, such as Cad Bane, who's not as famous as Luke Skywalker, arguably, right? Even when you have characters that you recognize that maybe are less famous or less popular, when they start showing up in your shows, in shows that aren't about them, there is this wonderful burst of joy, like almost probably bigger than Steve Rogers going, I got that reference, right? Like you recognize it, and it's a nod to the fans. It's taking something the fans recognize and maybe love and using it well. Oh my gosh, I cannot help but go back to the last episode of Mando season 2 when the X-Wing shows up in their time of need.
Oh my gosh.
And like, there were so many reaction videos that I started watching, and people are straight crying, which was, I was on the verge of tears when I saw it for myself, but then I watched other people having that same reaction. It was like emotionally validating. And then I started crying with them, like watching them watch the show. It's a real thing. Fan love is a real thing, and that's why they refer to it as fan service. They're doing us a service when they do stuff like that.
Do you remember back in the 60s when the Beatles first came to America? The footage has all of these screaming girls weeping at the fence as the Beatles are deplaning, right? And I always look back at that like, get a grip. However, when the X-Wing showed up, I was crying and screaming at the TV. So.
I was a girl from the 60s. I was a girl from the 60s when I saw that green lightsaber when it was not in the security footage. So that, just like, oh my gosh, it was so amazing. So in the interest of time, we gotta wrap this up.
Okay, let me just jump in real quick.
Yes, please do.
The thing that I really love that they've done so well is, so Return of the Jedi is the last time we see Luke Skywalker, and we all have this ideal vision of him and this hero that he is, and he's, he redeemed his father and ended the Emperor and blew up the second Death Star. All these things happen, with Lando's help and everything, and Leia and Hans. And then the next time we see Luke is he's this curmudgeon old hermit on another planet. We see the Luke we fell in love with.
Yes.
In these episodes.
Yes.
When he shows up to get Grogu. That's why we wept. That's why we were excited. That's why we were giddy. That's why we were excited when we saw him again training Grogu on this planet. That's why we were excited to see R2 telling all these droids to build this temple, and then he shuts down and won't talk to the Mandalorian anymore, because that's R2. He's like he's a droid that has all rights to do whatever the crap R2 wants, and he gets away with it, and we love that, which is why I hate BB-8. But that's okay. That's another. But we see Luke, and we realize that even when Luke gives Grogu this really impossible decision, we still realize Luke is still flawed. He's still making mistakes. Because in my opinion, that's kind of a crappy decision to give.
It's an artificial choice.
It is.
It's like, why you got to pick just one?
Yeah.
What's the matter with having both?
Yeah. But at the same time, it's not, oh, well, yeah, we can see why he's a hermit. No, he has no one. He's doing it all on his own. He doesn't have anyone to model after. He doesn't have the council. He wasn't fully trained. And so I love the fact that we still have the Luke that we know and love instead of this curmudgeon hermit.
I wonder if this is setting up another story thread, because the Mandalorian, Din Djarin, makes a comment when he's told the Jedi don't believe in making attachments.
Yeah.
And this goes back to the whole Anakin Skywalker Council of the Jedi. Yep. That whole, how did the Jedi Order become corrupted themselves? There's a whole nother discussion there. But at this time, he's told that the Jedi don't believe in attachments, and the Mandalorian is their religion, their philosophy is that it's all about the connection. There's nothing more important than, for lack of a better term, the family you create. And so Luke giving that choice is kind of like there's the Jedi way and the Mandalorian way, and he is making the statement that the two are incompatible. And so I wonder if this is going to show up in future Mandalorian or Book of Boba Fett episodes or Ahsoka. I think this might be laying the foundation. I would love it if this sets the creates that story thread to be investigated later.
Yeah, no, I think you've hit something there, and it would be really great because in the past, that was not frowned upon. Attachments were not frowned upon. I mean, come on,
right?
Bevan ends up marrying Bastila, the person that kind of defeats him when he's a Sith Lord, and then brainwipes him, and they have kids. That was very common. It wasn't until later that they kind of grew apart from that attachment thing. In Spartan, is it Spartans or the Greeks? I can't remember. One of those cultures, it wasn't frowned upon to develop love and adoration for your fellow brother in arms, because you fought harder to protect them. You fought harder, and which I think really models after the Mandalorian culture. Do I think that because Grogu picked the Beskar armor, I don't think Luke is like, you're out. He may have been surprised by it, but I don't think he's given up on him. It was a choice to see what he was going to choose, and we may see the consequences or see where it goes from there, where Luke learns, hey, because let's face it, he has an attachment to his sister. I mean, we know that he was training her, at least in one of the movies.
And his niece and nephews, plural, right? Like he carried on the tradition.
So,
and Luke himself left in the middle of his training and then came back.
Yeah,
so maybe he's hoping Grogu will do the same.
And in the extended universe, we saw that he ended up marrying Mara Jade. They have a son. I mean,
can they please?
I want to talk about.
Please bring that into this.
I know. I didn't want to go over time, but they're really missing an opportunity. If the fans can bring back Boba Fett, there's so much fan love for Mara Jade.
Oh my gosh.
It's not, guys, it's not a plot hole. We just gotta wait.
Yes,
gotta wait.
Full circle.
I mean, it really is. They're bringing stuff in. We're slowly seeing it. And maybe we will see. That there are rumors that they're rewriting that, those movies, the 7, 8, and 9, they're writing them out. That's an alternate universe, which is plausible through Star Wars Rebels. That was the storyline via Ahsoka died. But in the last season of Rebels, through a Jedi temple, Ezra pulls Ahsoka out of the timeline and brings her to the present, and now she's roaming around. And Who knows? Who knows what they're going to do? I do know there is some love and hate relationship with those final 3 movies. It would be interesting to see what they do. So, but I think we're out of time, aren't we?
I think we're
very close.
Let's put a cherry on top. Okay. Score of 0 to 5, and you can use halves, but not quarters. How would you score the first season of Boba Fett? That's a thinker, right? Yeah. Matthew.
I would give it a solid 4. It was really good. There is some room for improvement. I mean, I'm almost a 4.5, but I want to give them 4 so they've got room to really impress me.
I can understand that. Daniel.
4 is the number that's been rattling in my head. It's not perfect. It's not a 5. And it's not close to being a 5. So we're not even going 4.5. It's definitely a 4. There's enough there that made it a great show. There's enough there that intrigued me and made me want to watch the next episode. There was enough there that I wanted to talk about it in between every week. Now, there are some things that are missing. There are some things I feel like they missed out on. There's some things that they didn't fully dive into. The twins, like they just up and leave. I mean, but that could be next season. I really wish they would have dived more into the Pikes and the spice trade. Again, I think that had a lot to do with the shortened season and the pandemic.
Yeah.
Can they improve upon it? I think so. And you could really feel the Rush storyline in this, but it wasn't as bad as some of the storylines we've seen like in 7, 8, and 9. It still felt like it was cohesive. It still felt like there was a story arc that they were trying to accomplish. And so because of that, I will give it a 4.
I had the exact same score in my head for much the same reasons. But absolutely solid 4. I wouldn't dip down. Even if we could use quarters, even if we could use tenths, I wouldn't say it was less than a 4. For me, there was tons of payoff. There was tons of, as I said earlier, relevancy, not just dimension, but relevancy breathed back into an otherwise stale, though still beloved character, introducing characters or reintroducing characters from both the EU and Clone Wars, bringing back Luke Skywalker for a full episode where the deep fake was significantly better than the last time.
Oh boy.
Not perfect, but better. And yes, I am absolutely on that train that says that his name was in my head the whole time until just this moment, but like Bucky from Winter Soldier. Sebastian Stan. Thank you. His name was in my head for the last 40 minutes and I didn't say it, and then I lost it. I am on the train of Sebastian Stan playing Luke Skywalker in the future, but I love that Mark Hamill was able to be involved and to do that. So I give it a solid 4. Definitely room for improvement. I don't think it was a bad show. I don't think it was worth the 70% on Rotten Tomatoes or the 60% of audience reviews. I think it's higher than that. I think it's better than that. So, and I think next season they will have a better budget. They are on we've gotten through the worst of the pandemic, fingers crossed, right? Or rather, Hollywood has learned how to function despite the pandemic, right? They've gone through a growing phase. So I highly suspect that the next season of Boba Fett will, in all likelihood, be better than the first. It wasn't Mandalorian season 2 for me, but you know what? Mandalorian season 1 wasn't Mandalorian season 2. So there's definitely room for improvement, but I loved it. I loved it despite its flaws.
And you can't go wrong when you're riding a Rancor in the middle of a battle.
That Danny Trejo brought to your house.
Yes. Again, the final battle was amazing. The fact that you see Mando and Boba Fett fighting side by side and still kicking some major butt, even though they're getting knocked down. That's the other thing I really enjoy that they brought into this is, here are two heroes, and they're getting their butts kicked. I mean, you can even from the early episode where he's walking out with his helmet full of coins, and he gets pretty beat up. I mean, we know he's weak, but I like that. I like the fact in Star Wars that the heroes don't always get through, that they get beat up, they get bruises, they get their hands lopped off or an arm lopped off or legs even.
There are real stakes to the peril that they're in.
Yeah. So I appreciate that. And even more so, I like the fact that the Rancor goes nuts and just starts King Konging the town.
Take that, Mos Espa.
Yeah, definitely. So, is it a perfect TV show? No. Is it a good one? Yes. Can it get better and from here? Yes. Is it what everyone is saying? Well, not everyone. What a good portion of people are saying is it's horrible and they should never have made it. I don't think so. I think it's entertaining. I think it's good Star Wars. I mean, it delivers in so many different places. So, well, folks, it is that time. It's that time to go. Let us know what you think of the Book of Boba. Did you like it? Did you hate it? Did you just never see it? Did you listen to all this and still not go see the show, and now we've ruined it for you? If so, well, I'm sorry, but that's your fault because Krebs warned you. He totally told you, hey, you should pay attention. But there is great things to come. May 25th of this year on Disney Plus, the new Kenobi series releases. We still have the Andor series that's coming. We still have the Ahsoka series that's coming. Another season of Mando. It's right now. It is an amazing time to be a Star Wars fan. There is lots of content coming out, and I remember the day when it was like, you didn't have much. You had the first three movies and the Ewok made for TV movies. That's all you had. So it's amazing what we have now. You can take off to Disneyland or Disney World and go to Batuu and see. You can fly the Falcon. You can go on the Ride of the Resistance. You can build your own saber or droid. It's really cool to be a Star Wars fan right now. So
yeah, it is.
Which is amazing. So we'll see what else comes out, and tell us what your thoughts about the series are. We want to hear from you, and not only that, let us know who your favorite Star Wars character is. I mean, everyone knows mine. It's really easy. I went by his name for a long time.
You sure did.
Yes. So with that said, we're out of here.
And Dungeon Crawlers, tell your story, whatever may come.
And whether you enjoyed Boba Fett, it was only okay, or you're totally wrong and you thought it sucked, always remember to be epic and don't suck.
Remember, the Force will be with you, always.